Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for finding time and visiting today's webinar. I hope everybody can hear and see me clearly. If you can, please write in the chat box. Great. Thank you again. My name is Atreyi, and I work with the Global Avenues. I head the International Affairs and Collaborations, and our company is an education company. So we work with universities and higher educational institutions across South Asia as well as Europe. So we have a team, which deals with students, their queries, the entire admission process, what is to be done, what is not to be done, and on a regular basis, and I'm pretty actively involved with them. So today we will be talking about studying essentially in the Schengen countries, and I will be elaborating on some questions that we face pretty regularly that we come across from our students, parents. So this webinar that is being hosted by the Begin Group, we are conducting this together because we understand that these are challenging times when our students from India have a lot of questions, and together we wanted to offer a platform where we can answer or find solutions for you to meet these challenges essentially. So before we start, I'll give you a quick brief on how you can talk to me during this webinar. I believe quite a few of you already are on the chat box, which is on your right-hand side. There are two small icons that you would see. During the webinar, if you have any questions, please click on the the icon that has a question mark on it, and then you can type in your questions, and it would come at the Q&A thing. Right, and otherwise in any generic responses, you can of course keep writing in there. At the end of this webinar, we will have a Q&A session, and I will try and answer as many questions as I can. The idea is to answer generic questions for anything specific in terms of a particular university, maybe a course or your field of study that you wanted to choose, or a particular country. Let's say if you have questions, you can contact either Begin Group or us. I would be sharing at the end contact details for myself as well as my colleague Neetu Verma, and you can contact either Begin or ourselves for any kind of information. So are we all set to begin? So a lot of times when I deal with students, or we as a company, whenever we participate in, let's say, seminars or fairs, we come across a very common question. I wish to study in Europe. Europe is beautiful. We know about it, but we don't know where to start, right? So before we proceed forward, let me quickly give you a little brief about introduce you to Schengen countries as such. So the continent Europe as such is built of 51 countries, out of which 26 form the Schengen area. So these Schengen states, as they're collectively called, are essentially under the same jurisdiction, a single one, in terms of the visa rules, in terms of the travel policies, right? The international travel policies. So these countries, what they do are they're free borders. So they allow their own citizens an unrestricted and free movement across these countries. So in the next slide here, you would be able to see the entire map of Europe. And in the dark green, you would see these are the Schengen states, 26 of them. On the left, you would also see the names of it. So we would be talking about today not only essentially Europe, of course, in generic, but also about why would you choose to study in the Schengen countries. Before we go forward with it, I would just want to tell you that we would, as I said, there would be a lot of questions that I come across, and I would be talking more about it. But please, as and when we progress on the slides, please feel free to write in your questions in the chat box. So Yeah, we were talking about why the Schengen. Now, firstly, these Schengen countries come with a lot of world-class universities, world-ranked universities. They are very well known for their research centers, for all kinds of higher education systems. And these education systems, they are recognized worldwide. So if you come across with the EU degree, it would be recognized if you plan to, let's say, study there, come back into India, do something on your own, join a company, whatever, they are recognized worldwide. A lot of countries, yes, do teach in their local languages, but we have a wide range of courses that are available which are taught in English. And most of these courses are actually, they come across with different organizations to actually see what is the industry trend, what are the industry requirements. The curriculum that is given out is it's absolutely in sync with the requirements of the industry. Also, you have not just Indian students, you have students from all across the world coming into these Schengen countries together. So you have a diverse culture that you come across. You have a chance to broaden your own horizon and go beyond what you've already seen. Right. You visit new places because, as I said, there's you get to visit all of Europe with one visa because you're studying in the Schengen. You make new friends, you have new career opportunities, you have internship opportunities, you gain new experiences, and more experiences, you naturally, build upon your own skill sets. Also, these countries, when you visit these countries and when you study here, you are actually, opening up yourself to the international systems of working, whether it's about an education system, whether it's while you're doing your internship or your part-time jobs, or let's say you're working somewhere or whatever, you get to actually see what's new. Everything's going to be new, and you're going to be learning from every little aspect, right? So a lot of Indian students go across to Europe every year to study. And okay, I see that I have started getting questions. Thank you so much. We would address all of them at the end. So a lot of students, I was talking about, go abroad, right, to study. And a lot of students go to Europe. What would be surprising is currently we have approximately 45,000 Indian students who are studying in Europe, right? So let me now start, answering of some questions which we come across frequently, as to questions that are generally asked to me or my team whenever we are dealing with applications, right? Okay. So the first question that I would be answering is, what documents do we need? Yes, we have all our educational and everything, but is that all you need, or is there more? So you definitely need a valid passport. Most of the countries require you to have at least a passport which would be 6 months valid from the date of your travel, right? Because you would have to be applying for your temporary residence permit, open your bank accounts there, and your passport is your identity. You need a formal passport size image. It cannot be something that was taken like a few years back. It has to be a very recent one. You definitely need your educational documents, which would include all your previous actual education documents. So definitely the class 10th. For CBSE, there are 2 documents, which would be the mark sheet and the passing certificate for 12 for CBSE again. But a lot of education boards give you a single mark sheet. For example, the Punjab Educational Board, they give you a single mark sheet which has got your mark sheet plus a passing certificate all in one. So you need to have those. If you're going for your master's, you need to have your entire transcript of each semester wise, your mark sheets, and definitely your final graduation certificate. You need your IELTS, which is, depending on the country you're planning to study in. Some of the countries or the universities do you give an exemption depending on your interviews or your marks, or you know, or if you are going for a particular subject, it need not necessarily require IELTS for you. You need a very, very, very nice motivational letter. When I say a very, very, very nice, and I'm actually, harping on it, is because, your motivation letter actually tells the university or the higher education institution what your future aim is. That is a piece of document that is your own personal. You could have a lot of students applying for the post with marks of 80%, 90%, and 75% or whatever, right? First division distinctions. But your motivation letter is your own personal thing. It will actually talk about why you want to do what you want to do. A CV. The CV has to be very, very professional. Okay. Writing in your hobbies that you like reading, or you like surfing internet, is not what a CV should be essentially talking about. A CV should actually lay out what you have done. If you've done your internships, make sure that you do write what you've learned in it. There are a lot of updated software available on Google when you Google them, which actually gives out an option where you can make your own CVs and do it up to date, right? Ensure that you have referrals or work experience letters as a part of your application. Referrals go a long way, especially if you're working for your master's. If you're doing, of course, your PhD, then the referrals, you have to submit your publications and so on. And your CV is backed by these work experience letters. If you've actually done internship across, let's say, 3 different areas and 3 different companies or 3 different industries, but it actually shows that your interest is where it is and so on, right? Okay. That's something that we come across like every day in our lives. Is IELTS mandatory? No, it is not, but it is definitely preferable. There are many universities, as I was telling, in Europe, which have their own English exams, which make exemptions depending on Skype interviews that are taken. Now, these Skype interviews are recorded, are looked at, and these are essentially conversational in nature. If you can converse in English, if you can have like a real-time chat, then there may be exceptions. But if there are courses, like let's say if you're going for an English literature, then yes, you would need an IELTS. So make sure that you see what are the IELTS requirement. For a master's, it could be a 6. For a particular course, it could be a 6.5. For a particular university, it could be a 5.5. Depending, it's a bachelor's, master's, PhD, what it is. So ensure that you go through your go through the requirement of the particular university and see whether they would accept the latest degree stored, what your last English marks were, and so on and so forth. So in terms of beyond that, what we say is that, well, is there a university test? Is there any other test? So no, there are no fixed tests that are taken. However, different universities, different countries have different rules. So all universities will require you to have a GRE score or a GMAT score, right? But every admission process for every university is different, and you need to go through it thoroughly to understand if what the eligibility criteria is, what are the entry requirements. There could be, if you are, let's say, applying for a technical or a software bachelor's or a master's, there could be an on-spot test for that. There could also be some tests which are generic aptitude tests to understand where you stand with it, right? So there are different kinds of things for different universities. So it's a good thing to always read up. So, take that extra 15 minutes, take that extra 20 minutes and read through in detail what the entry requirements are for that particular university that you are looking to study in. How much does it cost to study in Europe? So I think before I go on to the real answer of it, I would want to see what you all think. How much do you think it would cost to study in Europe? I don't see any answers coming in. I'm looking at the chat box right now, and now there are people who are typing in. So yeah, let's see. And I can actually see. Okay, I've got a very interesting answer. It says 0 to 20 lakhs. Okay, 10,000 euros, 6,000 euro, 20 lakhs for 2 years masters. Okay, so I've got a lot of things. So different countries and different cost structures. Okay, so usually when we come across the fee structure, the non-EU students, we say, which are essentially us in India, right? The tuition fee is a little higher than what EU nationals pay. However, many countries in Schengen areas, they actually offer scholarships, and there are grants that are given out. There are also institutes which support you. So entrepreneurship and innovation is something which is very common nowadays, right? People are actually wanting to become more entrepreneurs than things. Also, if you are looking at a managerial role at any good company, people actually look for that entrepreneurial, that spark, that X factor, as we say it, right? And there are companies which actually support you to develop that by offering you grants. If you have, like, let's say, a business plan, or if you have something that you want to build upon, there would be. Yeah. There are many countries in the northern part of Europe, essentially northeastern part of Europe, where tuition fee is as reasonable as it is in India. Now, beyond that, right, other than the tuition fee, there are the living costs and other expenses as well. So, wherever your country, once you know that this is the country I want to go into, read up, talk to your educational consultant if you're going through one. A lot of universities actually give out on their own website a basic structure in terms of what the cost would be, what your, generic, let's say, like what's a hostel fee if you were to take it for 3 months, or if you were to take it for 6 months. Most of the universities actually either have their own hostel accommodation, or they have tie-ups with a lot of hostels wherein you can actually take up. And these, if you don't have your temporary residence permit, we suggest that you should pick up a hostel for about 6 months. At least that you're not have to be running around looking for, what now, where to go, and taking care of other things. There is, of course, a one-time airfare that you need to think about. Every country has a different visa consular fee structure. There's a insurance that has to be a part of it. Depending on your lifestyle, and your average expense can be anything between 350 euros to 1,100 euro per month. Could be a little more, usually not lesser, but then, depending on where you're staying, how you're doing, in case you are, sharing accommodation or anything, you can always look at that. Okay. So the other thing is that a lot of people take educational loans. A lot of people want to go there, and they want to work during studies. They also ask, what about after I've completed my studies, right? So many European countries, actually mostly, they allow international students to work, unless, of course, you are doing courses like, let's say, medicine, right? If you're talking about that, then you possibly would not even have any time to do a part-time while studying. But then again, rules differ in each country. It could be 20 hours per week, or it could be more. Bottom line, your studies should never be hampered. You should not be missing all your classes. You earn that extra buck or part-time. A lot of universities actually help you or suggest to see that, where you can maybe do a part-time, which would also add on as a value to your CV eventually, right? Because you want to be spending like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years in there. Post-study employment in Europe is, again, it varies with each country. Some allow 6 months, some allow even up to 2 years. So again, essentially depends on which country you're going for, which program you're going for. That would actually be the factor deciding on how many hours you can work during your studies and what the country's norms are in terms of after your studies. Okay, so we would now be opening up the question answer mode. So we would be starting to answer the questions right now. So I would, let's say, show up the question list. Okay. Okay, so which all Schengen countries provide post-study work visa? Okay, so Mohit, thank you so much for your question. And I would say that essentially every country offers post-study work visa in Schengen. However, it depends on your course, and it depends on which particular country to know where as to how long your post-study work visa would be. But essentially, 6 months is something that you do get mostly. Okay. Okay. How long does it take to get a student Schengen visa? Okay, so a student Schengen visa is essentially what is called a national visa. It's a B category visa. And depending on when your embassy interview is, it usually takes post the interview about 2 to 4 weeks for you to get the results. Okay. How can you get scholarships? Kiara. Okay. Thank you, Kiara. It depends. A lot of universities have tie-ups with different organizations that offer you scholarships. So usually they're all published on the website of that particular university. Beyond that, after you complete a year of study already in EU, you can actually look at scholarship options through Erasmus Plus, and you can see, how you can go about it. You can speak to your head of departments, to your faculty, to actually see, if there are other options that you could explore. I work with plenty of universities, and I can tell you this, that they are actually more than happy to help their students, international and national likewise. And they would be the best people to tell you, depending on your field of study, what scholarships you could apply for. Having said that, there are also a lot of country-specific companies or organizations that offer you scholarships in different countries in EU, across EU, that offer you scholarships at different stages, right? So maybe some scholarships are available 6 months before your application. You have to apply for it first, and so on and so forth. Universities, depending on I'm not sure if you have any work experience per se, but a lot of universities, depending on your work experience, also offer you scholarships on the spot. So depends where you're going. And so if you are looking for anything specific, then I think, feel free to connect with Begin or ourselves, later, and we can possibly guide you through for that. Okay, let's see the next question. Is 690 considered a good GMAT score for QS top ranking university? Okay, this is a little too specific, honestly, Mohit. A good GMAT score is something that is, I would say, every university depends on they have their own criteria for admission, right? So, and when you talk about QS, it could be number 1, it could be a number 1,000, and so on. It could also be as to what are you looking at in terms of a QS top ranking. Are you looking at a particular subject, or are you looking at generic? A lot of universities in Schengen are okay to give an exemption in terms of a GMAT score. GMAT score is specifically if you're looking at particular courses and things like that, right? So if you can tell me which university you're looking for specifically, then maybe we can, have a look and let you know. You're free to email us about it, okay? Moving on to the next question. Can we learn different languages? Of course, Priyanka. And I think that's amazing that you've asked this question, because a lot of my students actually come across and say that, oh, we don't speak the local language. So most of these universities actually have started introducing the local language, which is basic, because at least in about 3 to 6 months, let's say, you should be able to go and go to the grocery store and be able to buy your bread and eggs. Let's put it this way, right? So yes, you always have options, whether within university or outside. Yes, and I think learning a local language only adds on value to it. So yes, you can, of course, learn different languages there if you want to. How much is the scholarship? Okay, Priyanka again. Okay, Priyanka, so scholarship would depend upon what course you're applying for, what university you're applying for. There is no fixed fixed amount to it. There are universities and countries which actually give you like 100% scholarship. And also scholarships are based on merit specifically, right? Scholarships would completely be at the discretion of who's giving you out the scholarship and where you stand at the merit list. It could be anything to up to 100%. Okay, the next question. Which are the countries that charge a reasonable amount of tuition fee? Fatima Dalari. Okay. Fatima, there are a lot of countries which actually, picking up from Priyanka's last question, there are a lot of countries which actually give you 100% scholarship as well. But if you're only talking about the tuition fee specifically, then I would say a northeastern European countries, the Baltics as they are called, have really, really reasonable tuition fee. And those are, I would say, equal to what you would possibly pay in India. And sometimes you'll be surprised to know even lesser than what you pay in India. But yet again, it would depend upon the course you're picking up. But yes, I would say, that area in general, those countries, the 3 Baltic countries, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, are really, really reasonable when it comes to tuition fee, even the living cost per se. Will students get PR in Europe? Yes, you can get PR in Europe. Okay, so basically, the visa that you apply for is called a national visa. So you get like something like between 3 to 6 months, kind of a national visa, which is called a D category national visa. Within the first 90 days, usually we say that you have to apply for what is called a temporary residence permit. Now, this temporary residence permit allows, you have to apply for it at the local immigration office of the country. And this actually is what allows you to do a part-time job. You're not technically allowed to do a part-time job with, while you have the visa. So once you get your TRP, you start doing it. The TRP, the temporary residence permit, is issued for usually the entire period of study. Of course, it's on a renewable basis, but it's essentially at, so let's say you're going for your master's, you'll get it for 2 years. You're going for a bachelor's, depending on where you are, it would be 3 years to 4 years, right? Once you get your temporary residence permit, you start working there. And usually, the Schengen countries, you have to study and live for 5 years completely to get a PR or permanent residency, right? As we call it. Yes, you can, but it has to be like a country specific, and you can go ahead and apply for it once you have been doing it. I am personally, honestly, not very sure if every country has the same rule in Schengen, but overall, mostly countries actually consider your study duration as half of your stay. So if you, let's say, are doing a 2 years master's, it would be considered as 1 year, but then which means you'll have to study and live in that particular country further for another 4 years. You have to have complete 5 years to do that. Okay, next question. Any more questions? Wow, I have a lot of questions. Wow. Most of the universities from because Corona, from when universities are full-time education? Mohit, that honestly is a question that none of us have answers to right now, looking at the situation. Yes, not only France and Italy, all across the world, universities are looking to support their students. and starting on online classes. I believe when it comes to traveling to these countries, full-time education classes can only happen once you travel, which we are all hopeful that the September session everything would be fine, and all students would be safe enough for them to fly out in September. And if students do fly out in September, of course, the full-time education classes would start off. However, currently at the situation when we are in sitting on 31st of March, and essentially, the entire world is on a lockdown, taking care of their safety, I don't think I'm in a condition, or nobody is in the position to answer that exactly. But yes, you can be in touch, and we would be happy to keep you posted on as and when universities open up in Europe for full-time education classes. Okay. Are there any Masters of Hospital Administration courses available? Gauri. Okay. So Gauri, or Healthcare Administration. Yes. So Gauri, there are such ones. And but yeah, as I said, that specific questions in terms of the course or university or a particular country, we would like to keep it one-on-one. But yes, to answer you in brief, yes, we would be happy to offer you Masters of Hospital Healthcare Services or a Healthcare Management, which we have available for you. So yes, if you could, we would be publishing our email addresses. If you could write in to me or myself, we'd be happy to give that offer across to you with the details about the country, about the university, everything. Okay, Triti, you're in 12th, and what would you want to? Can I get student visa? I'm not sure if I follow your question. Are you looking to apply for bachelor's okay, so post your 12th, yes, you can apply for your bachelor's, and yes, you can go to Europe to study further if that is what the question is essentially. But what you would have to do is send across your 12th passing certificate. If you're currently in 12th, I'm assuming that your exams have not been completed, but as and when you complete them, please feel free to share your results with us, and we would be happy to discuss options. Can the students work full-time during master's studies? Okay. So it depends on the country, Rohit, completely. Some of the countries actually allow master's students to work full-time because the classes are usually part-time classes, twice or thrice a week. And in case students don't hamper their studies, don't miss out on classes, then yes, they are allowed in a lot of countries to work full-time. Otherwise, most countries allow up to 40 hours, which again becomes a full-time. Some countries allow, again, 20 hours. So it completely depends on the country you're looking at, whether you'd be allowed to work full-time during master's studies or a part-time. Wow, I have a lot of questions, and I'm happy there are so many questions coming up. Okay. How easy is it to find a full-time job after graduation? Okay. It completely depends on, again, what you're looking at. Yeah. So, somebody with a technical course background, let's in IT, okay, for example, it would possibly be if you're looking to, let's say, go to an Estonia, which is 99.9% digital economy, it will possibly be very easy to find an IT job if you are from an IT background. Let's say you're looking to do something in the hospitality sector or the fashion sector. If you move down to, let's say, France or Italy, it would be pretty easy. Now, the best part about applying through in these Schengen countries is that when you get a post-study, post-study extension in terms of your post-study stay, as we call in the regular term, right? You are allowed to look all across the all 26 countries to look for a job. You don't have to actually only look for in the particular country where you're studying. So let's say you are studying in Poland. It is not necessary that for the next few months you would only have to stick around in Poland. You are free. You can feel, you're free to apply to job to Finland or or a Latvia or a Portugal or an Italy or Czech Republic, anywhere where you think you can get a job. In terms of masters or MBA, depending if your masters is in a niche subject or an MBA, it is more about how you prove yourself to come across. But that's where your internships and previous part-time job references do help. So yeah, that's where we are. Okay, and any more? Yeah, Norway student, Denmark and Netherlands. Which one is best for masters? Depends on what you plan to do, Mohit. I work with plenty of, Schengen countries. So I think it'll be very, very judgmental if I was to choose one country. It completely depends on the course which you want to go for. And then choose particular. Every country has its own USP, as we say, right? Like in the last question I just said about hospitality being really good when you go down to France or Italy, or a fashion sector, right? Similarly, Estonia is really good, or Finland's really good when you talk about an IT maybe. So it completely depends on what course you're looking for. And in case you want to have any specific questions, as I said, about the course you want to look for, because I believe your previous question was also on masters, once we publish the emails, please feel free to connect with us and we would be happy to take this forward. Okay. Is there processing fee? Begin takes reply to universities. Begin group is a group which actually facilitates, and there are lots of fairs that Begin does across, and there is no registration fee that Begin per se charges. There would be a lot of universities that participate in these fairs, webinars, virtual fairs that we are now also looking for to get it in India. So no, not that I am aware of, but however, every university, or there would be a registration cost, there would be an application fee, there are different charges. So I believe if you're looking for a particular university or a particular country or anything like that, or a course, then yes, in case you're applying here through an education consultant, they would write down very specifically the charges that would be charged, right? So whenever we, let's say you decide to apply with the global avenues, right? So what we do is we would give you a link of the course that we'd be pursuing. Following with that, as to how the payment has to be made, what are the charges involved, if there's a security deposit, if there's a dorm fee that needs to be paid up. So all of that is laid down. So I think the best way would be to check as to, per university, particularly what the charges are. Okay, I think that brings us to the end of it. Thank you so much, all of you, for participating in today's webinar. You would be able to see our direct contact numbers for myself as well as Neetu. And also, please feel free to connect with Begin or ourselves for any kind of specific queries. And this brings us to then. Thank you so much again, and we hope that we can see you the next time. Thank you.